Donkey Kong Bananza is the first 3D adventure for the Nintendo Switch 2, but is it any good? And does it live up to the brilliance of Super Mario Odyssey? I'm going to take you through all this and more to give you an idea of whether it's the right game for you. So by the end of my review, you should be able to work out whether it's one to add to your catalog. So firstly, this is a new generation of gaming for Nintendo. So the question is whether or not Donkey Kong Bananza takes the graphics up to the next level. And if I'm honest, when I first started playing the game, I wasn't so sure. But as I kind of progressed in the game and got to some of the later levels and really got to see how good it was under the hood, I got to see just how amazing the graphics were. Yes, they're not as good as PlayStation 5 graphics by any stretch of the imagination, but they are a big step up for Nintendo, especially when you compare it to Mario Odyssey. Although, in all fairness, if you also compared it to Astrobot, there wouldn't be that much difference in terms of the fidelity. I would say that Astrobot is a little bit more lush and impressive, but it really isn't by a huge degree. So right off the bat, I can say that Donkey Kong Bananza is a very good looking game and definitely takes graphics up a notch on the old Nintendo Switch days. The big question for the graphics was whether or not the power of the Nintendo Switch 2 was going to be able to cope with the processing needed to calibrate for everything being destructible. Literally everything can be destroyed, pretty much everything anyway. There's like a few minor things that Donkey Kong can't just smash through, but for the most part the entire environment can be destroyed and reset at any time that you want to, and that kind of processing power puts a lot of strain on a computer. But actually the Nintendo Switch 2 holds up perfectly with that. You can go around smashing everything and you're never going to get stuck. You're never going to see any kind of clips or problems or bumps along the way. It's all just going to look smooth and stunning and just one very impressive looking game. And that leads on to the gameplay, which is heavily linked to the destructibility of the entire environment and Donkey Kong's massively clubbing fists. It's a lot of fun to barrel around the world, just smashing things up and making your way through the main storyline. You don't need to worry about going off piece too much to hunt down bananas. It can feel like a grind if that's what you're doing. If you're going out of your way to find all of the bananas as you go through, you're probably going to get a little bit tired of just smashing through walls. So if you want to get the most out of the game, it's definitely worthwhile just trying to make your way through the main story, which is a lot of fun. Now, full disclosure, you will need to collect a hell of a lot of bananas to really kick into the post-game stuff, but you don't have to worry about that until a little bit later, and you can always check out some of my guides if you want some advice on where some of the tougher bananas are, which should save you some of the effort of hunting them down. Now, in all fairness, there's more to the gameplay of Donkey Kong Bananza than just smashing things up. It's a huge environment to explore. You've got lots of challenges in addition to picking up the bananas. You've got the story, you've got the adventure, you've got big bosses to fight. There are plenty of platforming challenges for you to get into, along with a few puzzles and other challenges. There's just so much content to enjoy, and it literally is just a pleasure from start to end. On a side note, if you're finding my review of Donkey Kong Bananza helpful, don't forget to drop a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and leave a comment to let me know if you played the game and what your thoughts are. Now, getting back to my review, the story has probably got more emotional depth than any other first-party Nintendo title that I think I've ever played, certainly 3D platformer. And that comes because of the dynamic between Donkey Kong and Pauline, which you kind of progress really early on in the game. When Nintendo first announced Donkey Kong Bananza, the character you had on your shoulder was this rock character, but that was soon replaced with Pauline in a later trailer way before the game came out. And for Donkey Kong Bananza, Pauline is a much cuter character than she's been in any of the other titles previously. For anybody that doesn't know, Pauline is probably one of the earliest Nintendo characters who, along with Mario and Donkey Kong, kicked things off in the Donkey Kong game. Pauline was Mario's girlfriend and Donkey Kong nabbed her, and then Mario had to go and rescue her, although back then he was known as Jumpman. Anyway, that's the link on why Pauline is a part of Donkey Kong Bananza, and I think some of you are going to appreciate the dynamic between the two of them, but some might find it just a bit too sweet. It might not be your cup of tea, so if you don't like things too cutesy, then some elements of the story might not be for you. Pauline's a singer and she wants to get back to the surface after the craziness that kind of happens at the beginning of Donkey Kong Bananza, and her main reason for getting back is to be able to put on a concert. So that means there's plenty of singing in the game at key points in the story. So like I say, if you don't like things along those lines, then, you know, maybe you won't appreciate everything that Donkey Kong Bananza's got to give you. But for me, it's a brilliant story. It's a lot of fun. The relationship between the two characters works well, and it sets things up for a really amazing culmination to the game. This is a spoiler-free review, so I'm not going to go into any of the details, but the last few areas are amazing, and the final boss fight is incredible. Loads of the boss fights running up to that are pretty impressive too. So for any gamers out there that like their 3D platformers, but don't like things too cute, it might be worth looking past some of those elements in Donkey Kong Bananza just to be able to get to the end of this game, which is genuinely amazing. And then when you complete the game, there's plenty of post-game content to be able to complete as well. So this is just a huge title, which gives you hours and hours of action that will keep you going for months and months and months. It's not all just hunting down bananas either, although that is a part of the post-game. There are plenty of other things and other challenges to be able to do, because some of them are incredibly tough but really rewarding once you complete them. Okay, so clearly this is a game that favors people that like 3D platformers. But what level of difficulty are we talking about? Is it particularly hard? Is it an easy game to complete? Well, the good news is that it's fairly balanced. It gets progressively harder the further you go into the game, but then Donkey Kong powers up as you go. The whole mechanic is that you can unlock these skills as you progress, and the skills help you fight better in the game, which means some of the bosses later on are way more achievable because you've got all these Bananza skills and other things that you can do which help you to take them down. That being said, there's still going to be challenges that you're going to get to, and you'll think to yourself, I'm literally never going to work this out, or it's going to take way too long. There's not a huge amount of them, but they do happen every now and again. They're not linked to the story. They're kind of side stuff that you do to get Banandium gems. So if you want to collect all of those, there are definitely going to be some that are going to feel impossible, or certainly very challenging when you first try to complete them. But like I said before, I've got loads of guides on lots of things that are kind of tough in the game, so if you do find yourself stuck, don't forget to check them out with the link above. The other thing that Donkey Kong Bananza does incredibly is the soundtrack. The music for Donkey Kong Bananza is very good. I can't say there's any one track that I'm like, oh wow, that. But if you go back through the game, you'll find yourself in this area just sort of toe tapping along to the music, or you'll have this other section where you're like, the sound effects are so good here. But this is a first party Nintendo game, so it's kind of what you'd expect, but you can see that they've literally thrown the kitchen sink at Donkey Kong Bananza. Everything shines all the way through the game, with the only slight caveat that you might be a little bit thinking about the cutesiness of Pauline, and there are a couple of characters a little bit later on in the game that just look a bit meh. You'll know what I'm talking about when you get to them. Other than that, this is an incredible game, and anybody that likes 3D platformers is going to have a lot of fun. So yeah, Donkey Kong Bananza, I'm giving this 93%. If you find my Donkey Kong Bananza review helpful, don't forget to drop a like, leave a comment. You can subscribe to the channel with the link on the left hand side, and check out more of my videos for Donkey Kong Bananza with the links on the right hand side.